For 300 years, the alien city of Orelus kept a silent watch over the Crystal Tower. The tower was not just any monument. It was the tomb-like resting place of their last royal heir. Princess Serenia, legends said she had fallen into the sleep of eternity during the final war, her body perfectly preserved, her beauty untouched by time. Her people tried everything: sacred songs, ancient spells, machines from before the collapse, but nothing could stir her from that deep, unbroken slumber. Some began to believe she was dead, though her chest still rose and fell with a slow, impossible breath. Others whispered it was a curse, placed by an enemy who vowed she would never open her eyes again. And so she lay there, in a chamber of shimmering glass, waiting for someone who would never come until now. Ethan Cross had never heard of Orelus before his ship was forced down on this forgotten world. He was just a salvage runner, chasing old tech across dead sectors. His ship had taken a hit from a micro-asteroid storm, and with no working engines, he'd crashed just outside the alien city. The local silver-eyed beings draped in ceremonial robes watched him with both awe and fear. They had not seen a human in centuries when they learned he was from Earth. Their voices dropped to whispers. One elder stepped forward and said only 5 words: "You must come with us, Ethan." Didn't understand why they seemed so desperate. They led him through a city that felt frozen in time, market silent. Statues covered in pale moss, every street led upward, toward the shining tower in the center. At the top, a pair of massive gates opened with a low, ancient groan. The air inside was cold, smelling faintly of flowers that had never wilted. In the center of the chamber, bathed in light from above, lay the princess. Her hair was like silver water spilling across the white pillow. Her skin glowed faintly, as though some inner light kept her warm. She looked no older than 20. Yet the elders swore she had been like this since long before they were born. Ethan felt something strange the moment he saw her hand, almost magnetic pull. The elder's voice trembled as he spoke. For 3 centuries, no hand could wake her. No voice could reach her dreams, but the old prophecies spoke of a wanderer from the stars. They turned to Ethan, their silver eyes almost pleading, "Touch her, human." He hesitated. This was insane. He was no chosen one, no savior. Just a man looking for spare parts and a way off this rock. But the room was silent, the people holding their breath as though the fate of the world hung in his hands. Slowly, he stepped closer, his boots echoing on the polished floor. When he reached her side, he knelt. For a long moment, he just looked at her, at the way her eyelashes rested on her cheeks, at the faint rise and fall of her chest. Then, with a hand that felt heavier than stone, he touched her cheek. The air seemed to shiver. Light rippled under her skin, spreading like dawn over water. Her lips parted, and she drew in a breath. The slow, eternal breath of the sleep, but a sharp, living gasp. Her eyes opened, and they were like 2 shards of a blue star. Ethan's heart stopped. The elders fell to their knees, voices breaking into shouts of joy and terror, because in that moment, the princess whispered something that made Ethan's blood run cold, words in perfect, unbroken English. "Why did you come back?" Ethan froze when he heard the princess speak. Her voice was soft but carried a strange weight, as if each word held centuries of memory. The elders exchanged confused looks. They did not understand the language she used. Only Ethan knew it was English. Clear and flawless, his throat felt dry. I've never been here before," he said carefully. Her bright eyes searched his face, as if trying to read his soul. "You left me," she whispered, and a tear rolled down her cheek. The elders gasped. Tears had not touched her face in 300 years. Before Ethan could ask what she meant, the ground trembled beneath them. A low, deep hum echoed through the tower walls. The elders looked terrified. "The seal is breaking," one of them muttered. Ethan didn't know what seal they were talking about, but the princess seemed to understand. She sat up slowly, her long silver hair spilling around her like a river of light. "You have awakened more than me," she said, her gaze sharp and urgent. "The ones who cursed me. They will know." The hum grew louder. Strange symbols along the walls lit up, glowing red instead of gold. The elders began chanting in their own language, their voices shaking. Ethan stepped back, his instincts telling him danger was coming. The princess suddenly gripped his wrist with surprising strength. "You cannot leave now," she said. "You are bound to me." Ethan blinked. "Bound? What does that mean?" Her lips curved into a faint, almost sorrowful smile. "It means if you die, I die too." Before Ethan could process that, the chamber doors burst open. A wave of freezing air swept in, carrying with it a sound like metal grinding on stone. Figures stepped through tall, armored, with masks that hid their faces. Their armor was black and seemed to drink in the light around it. The elders fell silent, their fear almost choking the air. One of the armored beings pointed at the princess. In the name of the Oblivion Pact, the voice boomed, "Return." The sleeper to her prison. Ethan's first thought was to run. His second thought was that these things meant to take her by force. The princess still held his wrist, her fingers cold but unyielding. "If they take me now," she said quietly, "the world will burn." Something inside Ethan, maybe survival instinct, maybe something else, flared. He stepped in front of her, blocking the armored warrior's path. "I don't know what's going on," he said, "but you're not taking her." The leader tilted his head, as if surprised. "A human." The voice said with disdain, "You have no place here." "But—" Before the leader could move, the princess raised her hand. A pulse of blue light burst from her palm. Striking the ground between them, the warriors staggered, their armor hissing with steam where the light touched. "Go," the princess said to Ethan. "Follow the hidden path under the tower. It will take us to the river." Ethan hesitated only for a second, then pulled her toward the shadows behind the throne-like dais. Behind it, a narrow archway revealed a spiraling staircase descending into darkness. They ran, the sounds of battle echoing above as the elders tried to delay the intruders. The stairs seemed endless, the air growing colder with each step. Finally, they emerged into a tunnel carved from crystal, faint light shimmering in the walls. Ethan glanced at her, panting. "Why? Do you speak my language?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she touched the glowing wall, and an image appeared of a man, human, standing beside her in the same chamber centuries ago. "You," she whispered, "but not you." Ethan stared, his heart pounding. Somehow, she believed he had been here before, long before he was even born. The image in the crystal wall shimmered like water. Ethan could see every detail: the human man standing beside the princess, the way his hand rested on her shoulder, the way she looked at him with quiet trust. But this man wasn't Ethan. Not exactly. He had the same eyes, the same jawline, even the same small scar on the chin. But there was an older weight in his face. Ethan stepped closer, almost pressing his hand to the crystal. "What is this?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The princess didn't look at him. Her gaze locked on the man in the image. "That was the last day before the sleep," she said softly. "The day you promised to come back." Ethan shook his head. "I wasn't even alive 300 years ago." But even as he said it, something deep inside him stirred a faint echo of familiarity, a strange ache like a memory just out of reach. Before he could ask more, a distant roar rolled through the tunnel. The princess's expression tightened. "They've found the lower path." She pulled him forward, their footsteps ringing against the crystal floor. Ethan kept glancing at her, his mind spinning with questions he couldn't yet voice. The tunnel began to slope downward. opening into a vast cavern lit by rivers of glowing blue water. The light reflected in her silver hair, making her look almost otherworldly. She moved with quiet purpose, but Ethan could see the strain in her face. "You're still weak," he said. "You've been asleep for centuries." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Sleep is not rest," she said. "It is a prison. A constant dream I could not wake from." They reached the water's edge, where a narrow crystal boat rested, as if waiting for them. Without hesitation, she stepped in and gestured for him to follow. The moment his boots touched the boat's surface, it began to glide forward on its own. Ethan looked back over his shoulder. In the distance, shadows moved in the tunnel they had left behind, tall and insect-like. The sound of their armor scraping against the walls. "They're faster than I thought," she murmured, her eyes closed. For a brief moment, and the boat surged faster, the water beneath them glowing brighter, as if responding to her will. Ethan tightened his grip on the edge. "Why are they after you?" Her gaze met his, sharp and almost sorrowful. "They fear what I carry," she said, placing a hand over her heart. "And they know you have touched it now, too." He stared at her hand, not understanding. She didn't explain, only looked toward the far shore where faint lights flickered in the mist. The air grew colder the closer they came, and Ethan's breath formed pale clouds. When they reached the bank, the princess stepped out first, her bare feet silent on the frost-covered ground. Ethan followed, his every sense alert. The mist parted to reveal a massive doorway carved into the cavern wall. It was sealed by a slab of black stone, etched with symbols that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. The princess turned to him. "This is the Vault of Echoes," she said. "Inside is the truth you must see." Before Ethan could respond, a spear of black metal shot from the mist, striking the ground between them. They spun around to see the armored hunters closing in, their masks glowing faint red in the darkness. The leader's voice carried through the cavern. "Give us the sleeper, human, and you may live." Ethan felt his pulse thunder in his ears. He stepped closer to the princess, his voice low. "I think they mean to kill me either way." Her eyes narrowed. "Then we open the vault together." She placed her hands on the stone and began to speak in a language Ethan didn't understand. The air around them vibrated, and the symbols on the door flared bright white. The hunters broke into a run, their footsteps pounding like drums. Ethan reached for his sidearm, just a salvager's pistol. Barely enough to slow them, but he aimed anyway. The door cracked down the middle with a sound like thunder. Light poured out, so bright it forced Ethan to squint. And in that blinding glow, he thought he saw the same human man from the crystal image, smiling at him as if welcoming him home. The hunters were only steps away when the door split open. A wave of blinding light burst outward, forcing everyone, Ethan, the princess, even the armored pursuers, to shield their eyes. The ground shook as if the cavern itself was alive. Then, with a deep groan, the massive black slab slid aside, revealing a space that seemed far larger than the mountain could hold. Ethan grabbed the princess's hand without thinking, pulling her inside. The moment they crossed the threshold, the roar of the hunters dimmed. It was like stepping into another world. The air was warmer, filled with a faint hum, and the walls shimmered as though they were made of liquid glass. Each surface reflected not their bodies, but moving scenes moments. In time, memories not their own. Ethan saw alien landscapes, great battles, towering cities of light, and then himself, or someone who looked exactly like him. Walking beside the princess through those same scenes, he stopped in his tracks. "That's not possible," he muttered, staring at an image of himself holding a sword unlike anything he had seen before. The princess stepped closer to the glowing wall, her voice soft. "This place remembers all who have been bound to the royal line." Ethan turned to her, his pulse racing. "Bound like you said before. The whole 'if I die, you die' thing." She nodded slowly. Yes, but it is more than that, when one is bound. Their spirit is marked in the vault. It echoes through time, sometimes. Returning, her eyes lingered on him in a way that made him uneasy. You are the same soul as the one who swore to protect me. She said, 300 years ago, you stood here, promising you would never let me fall into the sleep. Ethan shook his head. I'm not him. I can't be. Her lips curved in a faint, bittersweet smile. Souls remember even when minds forget, before Ethan could reply. A sharp crack echoed through the chamber. He spun around to see the hunters forcing their way inside. Their black armor now glowing with crimson veins. The leader stepped forward. His voice like steel. You have touched the heart of the Voltrelise, her, or be unmade. Ethan didn't know what unmade meant, but his instincts told him it wasn't pleasant. The princess moved between him and the hunters, her silver hair flowing like liquid light. You will not touch him, she said, and her voice echoed in strange harmonies, like many voices speaking at once. The walls began to change, the moving. Memory shifted into a single image, a great sphere of light, pulsing like a living star in the center of the chamber. It floated above a pedestal, its glow bathing the room in golden warmth. Ethan felt a strange pull toward it, like gravity. The princess looked at him with urgency. The heart recognizes you. Only you can take it. The hunters lunged forward. At her words, Ethan didn't think. He just ran toward the sphere, his boots pounding against the glassy floor. The closer he came, the heavier the air felt. Each step was harder than the last, as if invisible hands were pushing him back. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself forward until he stood beneath the floating light. Up close, he could see shapes moving inside its memories. People, places he didn't know but somehow felt. The princess's voice rang out behind him. Touch it, Ethan, before they stop you. He reached up, his fingers brushing the sphere. The world vanished. He was standing in a sunlit field, the sky a deep shade of violet. The princess was there but younger, dressed in battle armor, her eyes fierce. Beside her stood the same man from the crystal wall, and Ethan realized he was looking out through that man's eyes. She smiled at him. That same bittersweet curve of her lips. Promise me, no matter what happens, you'll come back. His voice, though it was the man's, answered, I will find you even if it takes 1,000 years. The vision shattered. Ethan gasped as he stumbled back into the vault, his hand still on the sphere. The hunters were only a few steps away now, their weapons raised. The princess's voice broke through the chaos. Now you know why I waited. Ethan's heart pounded as the sphere began to sink into his chest. Merging with him, the hunters stopped abruptly. Fear flashing in their glowing eyes, the leader took a step back, his voice low and shaken. It's begun again. The moment the heart of the vault sank into Ethan's chest, the air in the chamber shifted. It was warmer now, but heavy, carrying a faint electric hum. The hunters froze, as if rooted to the floor, their glowing masks locked on him. Even the leader hesitated before speaking. He carries it. Again, Ethan's breath came fast. He could feel something moving inside him, like a second heartbeat, stronger, steady. It wasn't painful, but it was powerful, a presence that felt both familiar and alien. The princess stepped to his side, her voice calm but urgent. You must leave this place. The longer we stay, the more the vault will call to others. The leader of the hunters recovered from his shock. Take him alive, he commanded. The heart must not merge fully. The other hunters surged forward, their black armor clicking and hissing as they closed the gap. Ethan raised his salvager's pistol, but even as he aimed, a beam of crimson energy struck him square in the chest instead of burning. It vanished into him absorbed, like a drop of water on hot stone. The hunters stopped in confusion. Ethan blinked, looking down at himself. Okay. That's new. One hunter lunged, swinging a blade that shimmered with red light. Ethan moved without thinking, his arms snapping up to block. Ailey's arm was now covered in the same golden glow as the heart. The blade shattered against it like glass. The force of the impact knocked the attacker backward, sending him sliding across the floor. The princess's eyes widened. "It's already waking in you." Ethan didn't know what it was, but he was starting to understand one thing: these hunters were suddenly not as terrifying as before. Two more charged him, and his body reacted faster than his thoughts. He stepped forward, thrusting his palm toward them. A burst of golden energy exploded outward, hurling them against the far wall. The floor under his feet cracked in a perfect circle, glowing briefly before fading. Ethan staggered, breathing hard. "I don't know how I did that." The princess took his arm, steadying him. "Your soul remembers, even if your mind does not," the leader of the hunters snarled. "Enough." From his back, he drew a weapon, unlike the others, a long spear tipped with a shard of black crystal. The sight of it made the princess tense. "The null spear," she whispered. "It can unbind the heart." Ethan didn't need to be told what that meant. If the heart was part of him now, losing it might mean losing his life. The leader twirled the spear once, then hurled it with deadly precision. Time seemed to slow. Ethan saw the weapon cutting through the air. The princess's eyes wide with fear. His hand shot up, catching the spear mid-flight. The impact sent a shockwave through the chamber, shaking the glowing walls for a heartbeat. Hunter and human alike stared in stunned silence. Then Ethan felt the golden energy surge again, flowing down his arm into the weapon. The black crystal tip began to crack, light bleeding through the fractures until it exploded into dust. The leader stumbled back, his voice shaking. "Impossible." The princess pulled Ethan toward the open door of the vault. "They won't stop. Not now," she said. "We must reach the river before more come." Ethan hesitated, glancing back at the hunters. Some were still struggling to rise, others backing away like animals sensing a stronger predator. He didn't know if it was the heart, the bond with the princess, or something else entirely, but for the first time since crashing on this world, he felt like he had the advantage. Still, the weight of what had just happened pressed on him. This wasn't just survival anymore. He was now holding something entire armies wanted. They raced out of the vault and back into the frost-covered cavern. The mist seemed thicker now, curling around their legs as they ran, somewhere behind. The hunters' voices echoed in pursuit. The princess kept glancing at him, as if to make sure he was still there, still breathing. Finally, the sound of rushing water reached them through the mist. Ethan saw the blue glow of the underground river. Their crystal boat was still waiting, untouched, rocking gently against the bank. They jumped in, and the moment their feet touched the deck, it began gliding swiftly downstream. The princess stood at the bow, her eyes fixed ahead. Ethan leaned against the railing, the golden glow in his chest still pulsing like a steady drumbeat. "What happens now?" he asked. She didn't turn to look at him, but her voice was clear. "Now, Ethan, the whole galaxy will know you've returned." The crystal boat carried them through the misty underground river at a speed Ethan couldn't explain. There was no wind, no engine, yet the water parted for them as if obeying an unseen hand. The princess stood silently at the bow, her silver hair catching the glow from the river. Ethan wanted to ask 100 questions about the heart, about the man she thought he was, but the look on her face told him she was listening for something else. "They're not following us," she said at last. "That is strange." Ethan frowned. "You make it sound like a bad thing, her?" Eyes narrowed. "It means someone else has taken an interest." Before he could ask what that meant, the river curved sharply, and a massive opening appeared ahead. They glided into a cavern so vast Ethan couldn't see the ceiling. glowing. Towers of crystal rose from the water, connected by delicate bridges. Light pulsed inside the towers like veins carrying energy. It was a city, but not like any city Ethan had seen before. As they approached a landing platform, figures emerged from the shadows. They were not hunters, but they didn't look friendly either. Their armor was lighter, shaped like overlapping leaves of metal, and their eyes glowed faint blue. When they saw the princess, they dropped to one knee in perfect unison. Yet, their leader, a tall figure with a long scar across his cheek, did not bow. Instead, he looked at Ethan, his voice flat. The human carries the heart. The princess stepped forward. "This is Ethan Cross. He woke me." The leader's expression didn't change, and by doing so, he has marked himself. For every hunter and warlord beyond these walls, Ethan bristled. Not like I had a choice. The man's gaze stayed cold. No one ever has. They were escorted into the heart of the city. The streets were narrow but wound upward in spirals, leading to a central tower that seemed to touch the cavern roof. Inside, the air was warmer, filled with a soft hum like distant chimes. Ethan noticed the way people looked at him, not just with curiosity, but with something heavier. Some bowed, others whispered. A few stared with open distrust. The princess led him into a chamber lit by floating orbs, the walls covered in ancient carvings. "This is the Hall of Binding," she said. "It records every bearer of the heart." Ethan walked slowly along the carvings, his fingers brushing over the etched stone. Each figure had the same stylized golden mark in their chest. Some were alien, others strangely human-like. And there, halfway along the wall, was the same man from the crystal visions. The resemblance was too exact to dismiss. Ethan stopped, his voice low. "That's him." The princess stood beside him. "That was you." He shook his head. "No." "That was someone." Her gaze didn't waver. Souls do not care about the years between bodies. Before Ethan could argue, the doors burst open. A woman in similar armor to the guards strode in, her voice urgent. "The hunters have found the outer gates." The leader from before turned to the princess. "You brought them here." The princess's eyes flashed. They were already searching for Ethan's presence, only made them bolder. The man's voice hardened. "If they breach this city, the council will not protect you." Ethan looked between them, frustration boiling. "So what's the plan?" "Hide. Run. Wait for them to tear the place apart." The princess stepped closer to him, her voice steady. "We go to the surface. There's an old signal tower. If we reach it, we can call for help beyond this planet." The leader gave a short, bitter laugh. "Help will not come, princess. The galaxy fears the heart as much as the hunters desire it." Ethan crossed his arms. "Then maybe it's time to stop running and start fighting back." The princess studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "The heart is not at full strength yet, but there is a way to awaken it faster." Ethan's pulse quickened. "How?" She glanced toward the carvings, stopping at one that showed the heart surrounded by rings of fire. "By facing the trial of echoes," she said. "A test only the bound can survive." Ethan sighed. "Figures. There's always a trial." But her tone turned grave. "Ethan, if you fail, the heart will consume you." The chamber of the trial was nothing like Ethan expected. No fire, no arena, no crowd watching from above. Just a circular space made of smooth black stone, lit only by a dim, golden glow at its center. The princess stood at the doorway with the scarred leader of the city guard. "This is as far as we go," she said, her voice carrying both command and worry. Ethan stepped inside, the golden pulse in his chest growing stronger with each breath. The door closed behind him with a sound like grinding stone. The room shifted, the walls melted away into a vast field under a violet sky. Ethan blinked. He had seen this place before. It was the same field from his visions. The same place where the man who looked like him had stood with the princess centuries ago. But this time, she wasn't there. Instead, a figure stepped out. From the tall grass, it was the man, the past version of himself. Ethan's stomach tightened. "So, you're me." The man smiled faintly. "I am what you left behind." Ethan wanted answers, but the figure didn't give him time. The man drew a golden blade that shimmered like the heart's light. "To carry the heart, you must prove you can protect it." He said, "Show me you can stand when all else falls." The ground shook, and the sky darkened as shadowy shapes emerged from the grass creatures of black smoke, their eyes burning red. They circled Ethan, moving closer with each heartbeat. Instinct took over. Ethan raised his hands, and golden light flared from his palms, pushing the first wave of creatures back. But more came faster. The man's voice rang out, "Power is nothing without control." Ethan gritted his teeth, forcing himself to focus. He felt the energy in his chest respond, flowing down his arms. Shaping into a weapon in his grip, a golden staff, he spun it through the air, each strike cutting through the shadow creatures like fire through paper. But the fight wasn't easy. The creatures were endless, and with every strike, Ethan felt his strength draining. His vision blurred, and doubt crept in. Maybe he wasn't meant for this. Maybe he was just some unlucky salvager caught in something too big. That's when he heard her voice, not the man's, not his own thoughts. The princess, clear, as if she were standing beside him. "You promised me, Ethan. You promised you would come back." The words hit something deep inside him. The staff in his hands burned brighter, and with a shout, he drove it into the ground. A wave of golden light erupted outward, tearing through every shadow until the field was clear. The man lowered his sword, a faint smile on his lips. "You remember now," he said, "not with your mind, but with your soul." The vision faded, and Ethan was back in the black stone chamber. The golden glow in his chest now shone brighter than ever. The princess rushed in, her eyes wide. "You survived." Before he could answer, the scarred leader appeared behind her, his voice sharp. "We have no time to celebrate. The hunters have breached the gates." They ran through the winding crystal streets. Explosions echoed in the distance, and the blue glow of the city towers flickered under the assault. When they reached the outer bridge, Ethan saw the hunters pouring in like a black tide. The leader of the hunters stood at the front, his armor cracked from their last battle, but his eyes burning brighter. "Give me the heart," he roared, "and I will spare your city." Ethan stepped forward, golden energy swirling around him. "Not happening," he said, his voice steady. The battle was chaos. Hunters clashed with the city guard, crystal. Bridges cracked under the force of the fight. Ethan moved through the fray like the light itself was guiding him. Every strike sending enemies flying, every burst of energy shielding the princess from harm. The hunter leader charged him. Swinging a massive blade, Ethan caught it in both hands, the golden glow consuming the weapon until it dissolved into dust. The leader staggered, but before Ethan could finish it, a massive explosion rocked the city. From the smoke, a shadow, even larger than the hunters, emerged, a towering war machine, its core glowing the same crimson as their armor. The princess grabbed Ethan's arm, her voice urgent. "That is not of this world, it's from beyond." Ethan's chest burned as the heart pulsed harder. The war machine raised its arm, aiming directly at the city's central tower. Ethan looked at the princess, then at the monster. "This ends now," he said. He leaped forward, golden light blazing from every inch of him. The last thing he heard before the light consumed everything was the princess's voice. "Don't you dare leave me again."